Piece I will be looking at is called Time Transfixed by Rene Magritte. It is an oil-on-canvas painting of a peculiar living room scene involving a fireplace, a mirror, wood floors, a clock, and a locomotive that appears to be protruding from the middle of the fireplace. This painting, like much of Magritte's work, is surrealist. It takes familiar aspects of everyday life and changes them slightly to encompass the mystery and majesty of a dreamlike world. The dreamlike world Magritte utilizes in his paintings draws much attention to his work. He is known worldwide for his hauntingly familiar paintings, and his work continues to entrance audiences around the world. But why is his work so enchanting, and what makes this piece in particular stand out to and attract an audience? The enchantment of this piece comes not only from the painting's creation, but from the subject as well. The painting is simple, done in oil on canvas, and shows great skill and mastery over the art of painting. The lines are clean, the shadows are correct, the shapes are clear, the subject is concise. The composition of the painting is enchanting, but that's not the only interesting thing about the painting's creation. It does take a special type of person to paint so skillfully, and not everyone has that talent. However, the extraordinary imagination and creativity one must possess to imagine and execute this type of painting also adds to the enchanting nature of Magritte's art. As Gell states in his work, the enchantment of technology comes from its becoming rather than its being, meaning that the creation of the piece adds to the value and enjoyment of the piece rather than if it came into the world being fully formed. But why are we under its spell, and what makes us so attracted to this form? I believe this has everything to do with the subject of the painting. It is familiar. This is a fireplace and living room scene we could all recognize, but the warmth and familiarity of home is pierced by the dark and unfamiliar locomotive. Magritte, with all his creativity and unbeknownst imagination, is taking the unknown and bringing it into the known. He is, in Gell's terms, making what is out of what is not, and making what is not out of what is. In a strange moment of serendipity, Magritte also unknowingly acknowledges the enchantment of technology himself, recalling a moment as a young boy when he witnessed an artist painting in a grove nearby his house. He was so enchanted by the strange and almost supernatural activity that he wanted to know more about what it meant to be a painter and what it meant to paint. His early work reflects the art of the artist nearby his house. This is a landscape scene that was some of Magritte's early work, and that's exactly what the artist near his house was doing. The composition and creation of this work of art are not the only things that make this piece worth talking about. We can also look at the impact of the individual piece based on its resonance and wonder, as stated in the work of Greenblatt. We know the resonance is the power the displayed object has to reach out to the viewer and evoke complex cultural forces. And we know that wonder is a piece's ability to stop people in their tracks or an object's ability to gain the attention of the viewer. Wonder, in this case, relates directly to the painting itself. What makes the viewer want to look at it? Time Transfixed has very strong wonder capabilities. The painting is mysterious, entertaining. It's unfamiliar and slightly disturbing. But these are the reasons why people want to look at it. Art, especially in Magritte's form, is supposed to draw the viewer into a new world, to make them question apparent truths and expand the possibilities of reality. Resonance is slightly different. It's not just about the object, but about the social context surrounding it. When giving this piece away to the benefactor of the painting, Magritte was actively thinking about the resonance of his work. When he gave the painting to the collector named Edward James, who was holding a large ball in his home, Magritte wanted James to place the painting at the bottom of the stairs, a very prominent location, so that it could stab the guests on their way up to the ball. However, the benefactor, James, ironically placed the painting above the fireplace. Magritte believed that the painting would have had more resonance if it was placed in a more prominent location, directly impacting the way the guests would see the art. In this case, the choice to place it above the fireplace instead of at the bottom of the stairs was an interesting decision, as the painting does reflect the actual fireplace below, but the placement does not reflect the desires and intentions of the artist or the desired resonance of the art. Now, this artwork is easy to classify in the craft terms highlighted by Gertz. The physical piece, its colors, forms, shapes, are all laid out like a meal for the eyes. But what is this work saying about culture? Now, this piece is not the only piece by Magritte that was made for Edward James. This other piece, called Not to be Reproduced, was also created for James and even features him and the same fireplace and mirror from Time Transfixed. But in order to truly classify Time Transfixed in sociocultural terms, we must try to understand what the piece is striving to do and how we classify it emotionally. As I have said before, it is a well-done painting, the scene is clean, and it is technically beautiful and thought through. But it's also confusing, off-putting, incorrect, and haunting. The complexities of this piece make it clear that one cannot understand aesthetic objects as concatenations of pure form. We need to understand these objects in a dynamic relationship to the sensibilities from which they emerge, as stated by Gertz. This artwork was inspired by the dining room of the benefactor Edward James. And the circumstances of its creation, its name, which directly translates to the concept of ongoing time stabbed by a dagger, now known as Time Transfixed, hints to a greater cultural meaning behind the artwork. But it is up for debate as to what exactly Magritte had in mind when his brush dashed upon the canvas. Some believe the locomotive is supposed to represent time, normally in motion, quickly moving past, and the fireplace represents the idea of a dagger stopping the train from its progression. Others look at the train as the dagger, plunging through the barrier of time into a new reality. What do you think about this piece? Is Time Transfixed worth talking about in social or cultural contexts? Thank you. Now I'm just going to try to stop the recording.